On April 20th, 2008, Danica Patrick did something no woman had ever done in an Indy car. She won the Japan 300, making her the first woman to ever win an IndyCar race. Here's the story behind how Danica Patrick was able to win and become a symbol for what women could do in the sport. Today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive into sports history. The IndyCar Series started back in 19, but it gone through a lot of different changes as the name Indy comes from the Indianapolis 500, which was held all the way back in 1911, which has always been an open wheel racing. There have been different factions of open wheel racing, such as Formula One and kart racing, and they've all changed ownerships and names to get the IndyCar Series that we know today. And the biggest race they run every year is the Indianapolis 500, which is the greatest spectacle in all of racing. And women participating in racing hasn't been consistent, but it has had a long history. It goes all the way back to the 1970s, when Janet Guthrie, in 1977, competed in her first Daytona 500 for NASCAR, and the following year competed in the Indianapolis 500, paving the way for women to compete in auto racing, as it has widely been thought of as a male-dominated sport. But the more years go by, the more women have been involved. But despite all these women trailblazing the way for women to drive, Danica wasn't necessarily interested in that growing up. She didn't get into it till she was almost a teenager, growing up in Wisconsin, when her family was just looking for a way for them to do something together. She was more interested in being a singer and playing with animals. When Danica Patrick and her sister decided to spend some time with friends riding go-karts, they thought maybe that's the thing the family could do going forward. So their parents bought some go-karts, and her father acted as her crew chief and mechanic, and their mother was the statistician for her and her sister. And they started out in go-karts and worked their way up into different fields. And Patrick really drew the eye of others, even at 13 requesting from her parents to go compete in racing in California, as they could race year-round, whereas in Wisconsin and the Midwest, you could only really race during the spring and summer times when it wasn't as cold. But her parents said they weren't able to make that move, but she continued to dominate on the go-kart circuit, winning over 10 regional karting titles, then eventually accepted a position at an Indianapolis-based driving foundation program in 1996 that was helping teach drivers all the things they would need to become a professional driver. And she got so into it that she eventually dropped out of high school to obtain her GED to go overseas to learn even more about racing in England. While she was there, she was able to meet other successful women drivers such as Jackie Stewart and Jensen Burton. And she also caught the eye of the Ford Motor Company, who decided to financially back her as she went through the junior formula. And she was starting to work her way up through the Formula Series and received a Formula 3 test, which is like the minor leagues for Formula 1. And then she would bounce around from team to team, having moderate success throughout her time in the junior series. But she caught the eye of Paul Rahal during her Formula test and actually gave her 2 tests in the Formula Series. And then when Rahal made his way to the IndyCar, he signed her to their IndyCar roster in 2005, making her the 3rd car on the team. She made her debut at the Homestead Miami Speedway, finishing 9th, despite having a crash that led to her getting concussion. And in the 4th race that season, at the Japan 300, she was able to qualify for 2nd and led 32 laps during that race, but ended up finishing 4th, but showing she had the skill for the competition. And that year, she had the fastest overall practicing speed at the Indy 500, where she would actually finish 4th, which was the best finish by a woman ever at the Indy 500. And she would go on to finish 3rd in 2009, and still holds that record to this day. In the next race at the Kansas Speedway, she would be the 2nd woman in IndyCar history, following Sarah Fisher, who did it in 2002, to qualify in the pole position, meaning she got the number 1 spot when the race started. Though she did not end up winning this race, she continued to show that she had the skills for the IndyCar Series. She was doing great on the track, but she also was doing great for the sport. She got a deal with GoDaddy for some salacious ads that really rocketed her into stardom and got the Indy Series even more visibility. Now, she continued to have success over the next 3 years, but was not able to win any race until April 20th, 2008, when at 26, Danica Patrick was starting her 50th career Indy start at the Twin Rings Motegi, a 1.5-mile oval. It was a 200-lap race, and she was battling the whole race with Hall of Fame drivers such as Scott Dixon and Helio Castroneves, and she made her final pit stop on lap 148, meaning she had 52 laps before the end of the race, and she was able to use her skills to make sure she made it all the way to the end. On lap 197, she went from 4th to 2nd place, passing Scott Weldon and Tony Kanaan when they went into the pits on lap 196. And then on the next lap, on the 198th lap, she passed Helio Castroneves to take the lead. And she would not look back, taking the checker flag on her 200th lap, beating Castroneves by almost 6 seconds, and becoming the first woman to ever win an IndyCar race. And still is the only one to ever do. But doing this has led to more women getting into racing. Danica has since retired from racing. She has competed in IndyCar, rally racing, NASCAR, and multiple other series, and left her stamp on the racing community and helped be a role model for future women in the sport. And with her victory on the track was a triumph of determination and skill, breaking down barriers. Throughout her career, Danica blazed a trail for women in motorsports, proving that gender was no barrier to success in the automotive sports industry. And her relentless drive to never give up and to continue to learn inspired athletes everywhere. Remember, success does not come easy, but with passion, perseverance, and belief in yourself, you can do anything. And Danica Patrick's journey is a testament to resiliency and never giving up, despite every hurdle that was in her way. And if you enjoyed her story, share it with a friend, and come back tomorrow for more daily sports history.